Hello, it is October, and this is my October Buzzwordathon book. It's called Lady in the Lake by Laura Lippman. I believe the prompt was something in the title that has to do with like one of the four elements. So like earth, wind, water, fire. And I went with water, lake. I am behind schedule as per usual. It's actually October 29th, and I started this book last night. I'm only not even 50 pages of the way in. So far, it's good. It's different than I expected from the description. Laura Lippman, her thing is they're kind of mystery thrillers, or I guess they're just mysteries, but like elevated mysteries, like they're deeper, if that makes sense. And then also Baltimore. I assume she's from Baltimore because I think all of her books that I've read take place primarily in Baltimore. Mystery fiction, that's what they call her books, which is what I was trying to say, but I just don't know that I've ever really heard that term before. So she's named one of the essential crime writers of the last 100 years. You know, even though like mystery fiction very much what I would try to describe her as. I don't know if I ever thought of her as like a crime writer. Like they're mysteries, and I guess they are crimes. They're all like murder mysteries and stuff. It's not like the first thing I would think of. She's not the first person I would think of if you asked me to like list some mystery authors. Like I don't even know if I would get to her, because even though all her books are mysteries, it's like a different mystery vibe. I am 50 pages of the way into this book. I like the writing, as I always do. Like I find her to have a very readable prose. I don't know. I don't know if I get it. It takes place in the 1960s. I thought it was going to be about this woman that left her husband, and now she's like a crime writer for like a newspaper or something. And I guess we just haven't got there yet. Like we're just setting up background. But it's mostly following her story, Maddie. Maddie's her name. It's mostly following Maddie's story. And then occasionally it'll jump to perspectives of other people around her. And there's also this lady in the lake perspective. I can't tell if it's like a literal ghost. I don't know. We're gonna see. We're gonna see if there's a ghost. That's kind of what I'm waiting to see. I don't know about the book so far, so we'll see how it goes.
Several months later.
Oh, let me tell you all. This book was almost the one that broke me. I don't know why exactly. Like, it certainly was not the worst thing I have ever read. It's not even the worst thing I've read for this particular challenge. Looking at you, strangers with the same dream. So apparently, this is why I switched up my lighting. I had forgotten about that when I started wearing my glasses. That's why I had to switch to the different lights. Trying kind of a new filming location at the moment. As you can probably tell from the Christmas tree in the background, it is now December. Again, I got maybe more than halfway through this book back in October and stopped. Absolutely just stopped reading it. Was over it. Could not deal with it. Moving forward with this review, there will be full spoilers. So if this is a book you are interested in reading and do not want spoilers, this is not the video for you. I think I talked about this in the beginning. This is about a woman. She's 38, I think, and has decided after almost 20 years of marriage to her husband and having a teenage son that she is not satisfied with her life and she needs to be more, and she wants to become a journalist. So she manages to get herself a job in a newspaper, and you know, they're kind of just using her like as an errand girl. There's comments over and over about how she's too old and washed up to be starting in journalism, which again, I think she's 38, whatever. And she manages to get herself involved in two specific cases. One of them is the murder of a young girl, and she manages to be the one to actually find that girl's body. And the other case is this lady in the lake. So it's a young Black woman who disappeared for a while, and then her body was found in this, I think it's like a lake, but like a lake with a fountain in the middle. You know, like I think it was like at a zoo or something. If you can picture that, where it's a lake, but there is also a fountain in the middle. I think that's where she was. And Maddie, the main character, for no good reason, kind of becomes obsessed with this woman and starts going around trying to find out what happened to her. Everyone's discouraging her from this. They're saying there's no story here. She was a young girl. She went on a date with the wrong guy. It's been months. We're never going to catch him. No one knows who he is. You need to just give this up. And Maddie really doesn't have anything else to go on other than that. Like, the girl was seen leaving a bar late at night with a man that nobody knew, and then she disappeared and was found dead. And like, I'm not saying that's something that people shouldn't care about, but it doesn't for a mystery thriller, it doesn't really make the greatest of premise. And Maddie, through her investigations, kind of begins to suspect that maybe this girl was actually dating this guy that's like rich and kind of into politics, and that perhaps she was killed because him having a girl on the side would hurt his political aspirations. It's interesting because everyone tells Maddie, they're like, no one would kill her for that. No one would care. No one would care that this rich, successful older man had like a young side piece. Like, no one actually cares about that. And also, that guy's not going to win the election anyway. Like, it's not even close. He's like in 4th or 5th place. So that would be a dumb reason to kill this girl. Eventually, this other guy, this bartender, confesses to murdering her. And Maddie's like, oh, yeah, I was so silly to think that that would be why someone would kill somebody. But it turns out that Maddie was right, and that actually she was killed because she was dating this man with political aspirations. And it wasn't so much that he had a side piece, but that he was going to leave his wife for his side piece, and that would hurt his political aspirations. But he didn't even really care that much about his political career. It was this other guy that was like really invested in it. It's just the stupidest thing anyway, because the guy was like in 4th or 5th place and didn't even come close to winning. I guess the whole message is supposed to be that, you know, people are killed for the stupidest reasons. And that's true for sure. Like, I was definitely thinking about this documentary that my husband and I watched. Okay, it wasn't really a documentary. I think it was like an episode of Forensic Files, but basically these young guys broke into this old woman's home because they knew she had like $500 in cash on her table, and she woke up and caught them in the middle of breaking into her house, so they killed her. That, of all the Forensic Files episodes I've really watched, is like really stuck with me because there was absolutely no reason to kill that woman. She was 80 some years old. She wasn't going to be able to harm them or even get to her phone fast enough to call the police on them herself. Even if they had gotten caught, breaking and entering into someone's house to steal a couple $100 is not going to get you in nearly as much trouble as violently, viciously murdering an old woman for no good reason. Again, moral of the story, people can be killed for the dumbest of reasons. I don't know that it worked in this book, though. I also talked about how we're mostly in Maddie's perspective. We're also switching to like this ghost-like perspective. That is Cleo, the girl that was murdered. I said in my earlier clip, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a literal ghost, like Cleo actually is literally a ghost following Maddie around, or if it's just like metaphoric. I don't even know. Well, it turns out that neither of those was the case, and that Cleo was actually alive all along, and the body in the lake wasn't even her. Her and the bartender that confessed to killing her staged her death and used the body of her roommate. And then they said the roommate ran off to Florida or something. Like, that was an interesting twist. But like the way the twist comes to be is Cleo, for absolutely no good reason, visits Maddie and tells her all of this. Even though Cleo and Maddie had never met and had no connection. And I guess Cleo was like following Maddie around while Maddie was researching her life. That's what the ghost parts were, was it was actually just Cleo alive watching Maddie. But it just didn't make any sense. Like, there was no reason why Cleo would have been that interested in Maddie to begin with, or like why she would care enough to tell Maddie, like, haha, I'm not actually dead. Or why after faking her death, she would just like hang around in the town where like her picture's being posted everywhere and like the story's covered in the newspaper, and like, I don't know. And Cleo faking her own death didn't really make that much sense either, because yes, these people were trying to kill her, but like, she could have just left. You know, she didn't have to pretend to be dead. She could have just left town, and they weren't going to care enough to follow her because like it only mattered in this really small local politics circle. So she would just left. She would have been fine. But instead, she had to fake her death and leave her family, including her 2 small children, behind, that she, I guess, never came back to and never told that she was actually still alive. I don't know who we're supposed to like and root for in this book. I would be the first to say that a book taking place from the perspective of a mother does not just have to revolve around her children. Women still have lives after children. They are not just mothers. But these two are both pretty shitty mothers. Like, Cleo just completely fakes her death and abandons her children so that she can continue dating this guy secretly. Maddie leaves her husband and leaves her son, and like, I'm not saying she shouldn't have, but like, her kid was like 16 and a half. Like, she could have stuck it out another year and a half till he was like away in college, and like, her relationship with her son is pretty much destroyed, and she really doesn't seem to care. The fact that she's a mother is such a small part of this book. And again, like, I'm not saying that should be all of her identity, but I was kind of like, don't you have a kid? Like, Don't you? It's bad when I'm the one being like, what about your kid? So yeah, that was this book. I set this thing down for like a solid month and didn't go back to it. And it's not long. Like, this is not a long book. And part of it's Maddie, part of it's Cleo stuff. And you really don't get much information from Cleo's perspective. It's basically just ghostly observation / filler. And then also in between Maddie and Cleo's stuff, we will randomly just switch the perspective of someone else that pops into the story. And like sometimes it'll pay off a little bit, but not nearly enough to justify all the backstory we get on these random characters, some of which legitimately never pop up again and never pay off at all. This did not do it, not even a little bit. So that's all I have to say about that book. I didn't do any vlogging or anything because I was just, like I said, took like a whole month off from reading that book. I did finish it. I gave it 2 stars. It wasn't like painful to read or anything. I just didn't care. I didn't like any of the characters. I wasn't rooting for them. And ultimately, like the mystery, the story at the center of it just wasn't that interesting. So 2 stars. I do still plan on reading my November and December books. November is kind of holding me up, I'm not gonna lie. That book is called Where the Lost Wander. The prompt was a book with the word lost in the title. I started this book probably a year ago and I read the first 2 chapters and was not feeling it. My sister read it. She said it was good. She said she liked it. It does this thing where in the opening chapter, you meet this girl, and I think she's on the Oregon Trail or something like that. And you meet her whole family. And then instantly in that first prologue, chapter 1, whatever it was, her entire family gets like slaughtered, just dead. And then chapter 1 or the next chapter jumps back in time to like the start of the Oregon Trail. And I have a hard time with books that work like that. I have a hard time when we're meeting her family and meeting these characters. And I'm like, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. You're scalped, you're real fucking dead. I have a hard time getting emotionally invested when I know all that's coming. So I've been kind of avoiding that one. And then the December one, 3 Days Summer, I think it's called. That one I'm not worried about at all. And I know I could just like, that's just a YA summer book. I can bang that out in a day. So I do still plan on finishing this challenge. I am almost done. I have not made videos for every single month, but I have been reading all of the books. So if I finish these 2 before the end of the year, I will consider everything a success, even if I didn't necessarily get everything in the exact months. But we are here, we are doing it. I will see you soon.